Welcome to the Hall of Fame podcast. As always, we can do a quick industry update before we start. Before we get to that, remember, we're brought to you by One Truck America. That's onetruck.us. Now let's jump into the latest news. China and the U.S., they're negotiating in London, have reached a tentative deal. All the details have not been released. So what was secured 90 days ago, which was a 30% for us on their imports and then 10% for ours going to them, is still in place, but the framework should come out in the next 2 days. So this should stabilize probably our biggest import market, which should see some stabilization to what's going on in the ports and so forth. Now, before that happens, remember, there's a huge chunk of freight flying this way from when the tariffs were at 145% that's going to hit. And NS see this coming. NS does not want, NS the Norfolk so does not want that product sitting on their rail yards, so they have doubled their demurrage charges for imports. So there's an article out on that on One Truck America. That's onetruck.us. You can check it out. You can get all the details. But I think you should truly pay attention because I think that's important. Some other key news, and we go by the articles that we write, see what you guys have reacted to the most. The PAM Transport CEO resigned. They brought a new guy. He's going to stay on as a consultant for I think at 2 years. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. We wrote one about the Amazon Reno facility that's closing there, replacing that with a state-of-the-art facility. Bam. Tough time talk today. So that's a good one out there. And FedEx is spinning off FedEx Freight, their LTL. They're going to be a separate entity. I think that's something that people is really interested in also out there. And I think that's kind of important. Maersk brought almost a 1.2 million square foot facility in New Jersey, which is a coal facility, which has helped support their network in the U.S. So those are the key things, the trade deal being the lead. And also we reach a trade deal with India. I don't know if you guys have saw that, but the India, which we do import quite a bit from it. The biggest thing is U.S. and China has get to a tentative trade deal. The details should come out today, tomorrow, latest Friday. And then we will give you a last wrap up on that China deal from there. Now, we'll continue to do a weekly episode, a weekly article that talks about the ships coming in and the surge. We'll continue to do that until we get back to business as normal. So you'll continue to see that. That's not done by me. It's done by one of our contributor reporters. But I think that's important. But other than that, it's time to get into this LTL episode that is amazing. This guy's been in the industry for 25 years, Scooter, and I think you're going to enjoy the episode. So let's go. Hall of Fame. Welcome to the Hall of Fame podcast. We've got a great episode coming to you. We have an LTL expert, Scooter Sayers, and he's going to dive into LTL from top to bottom. I've never worked in LTL, worked in almost every other mode, but I think this is a chance for us to really dig into. He also does some contributor writing for us. If you look at most of the quarterly releases that we post on One Truck America, they're written by him as we tag it into those articles. So without further ado, Scooter, I want you to introduce yourself, tell us a little about yourself. If you want to talk about your company, knock yourself out, brother. I turn it over to you.
All right. I appreciate that, Ken. So, yeah, my name is Scooter Sayers. I've been involved in LTL for pretty much my professional career, spans over 30 years. I spent 25 years working for a major LTL carrier. Actually thought I was going to retire there. I was going to live and die there, actually. But things changed as life changes, and I moved on to do some different things. I worked for a couple of 3PLs. I even began consulting on my own, which was a lot of fun as I did that. And one of the companies that I was doing consulting with is a company called Cubiscan, and they convinced me to hang up my consulting shingles and go to work for them. And so that's what I do today is I do sales and do everything LTL for them, dimensioning. So I spend my day talking to carriers, talking to shippers, talking to 3PLs, talking to TMS providers, anybody that's involved in LTL, I'm talking with them, particularly as it pertains to freight dimensioning, which has become a very popular conversation topic, especially with the changes coming to what's called the classification of LTL freight.
Yes, it's funny you brought that up. And we'll get back to that point. I spoke out of Michigan State maybe about 5 years ago, and they had a major specifically about packaging. So I started to get into it more, and the professor gave me a great example. He says, "Hey, we have done some work with Procter and Gamble to if we change the size of their product and square it out a certain way, we can get an extra case in that 53-foot trailer." So you think about an extra case on the pallet, stacked to the top, cube it out before you weigh out. It was a game changer. And that's when I started to get an idea, understand more of what you just said. Because, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And also the pulling out of water out of the products and the different things. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, if you want to expand on that, you can, but I want to dive into the LTL also. So I'll let you expand on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Where would you like to start as far as LTL?
All right, let's start here.
Big subject.
Here's kind of what shocks me.
Yeah.
What's Art Best doing that they're so much ahead of everyone? What is the secret sauce there? What's going on there? Because when I look at these LTL releases, I see one running away with it and the others are struggling. What am I missing?
No. Well, I think first and foremost, every carrier out there has got their own path that they're taking, right? They're not all the same. They all are LTL carriers, but the commonality will start separating pretty quick. Everybody has been on a different path, especially with the closure of Yellow YRC Freight. Different carriers, depending upon the carrier, some picked up more of that business than others. So everyone's been on their own unique path in terms of how their business is operating and performing and what they're trying to do with their business. And so as you look at any snapshot in time, you're going to see what appear to be winners and losers. But if you wait and you look at it next year and take that snapshot, you may find a different set of winners and losers, right? And it all comes down to, where are you catching each carrier on that path that they're on, right? Are they super comfortable? Are they in the right spot, or are they going through some growing pains? Are they going through some challenges of trying to downsize or become a different operator? Everyone's trying to get better at what they do, right? I think Yellow closing taught everybody that it's not going to pay to be a medium service provider with a low price. I've got to be a top performer, and I need to charge accordingly for my services. And that's what everyone's trying to do right now with a down freight economy. So it creates some challenges here and there.
Okay. All right. Let's move up to another one. So I remember Saya. I remember when we were dealing with them. Actually, we hauled their intermodal loads for them. So they're long hauls from like LA to Chicago, right here in Burbridge, close to us. I know you're in Atlanta. They had unbelievable service. That was known that the service has suffered. What do you think is driving that? Is it over expansion? What do you think is driving that?
You're seeing their service kind of degrading? Is that what you're saying?
It is. It's degraded quite a bit. Yes, it's been a fair comparison for customers that I dealt with, whether in the 3PL market or when I work for corporation. It's just been the feedback I've gotten that their service has degraded quite a bit. And they have even said that because they put out a release. I think I wrote something about it, talking about them moving like the customer service people back to the terminals versus being centrally located. So do you know anything about that? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I actually like that move of moving their customer service back to their terminals. I think they're doing that to improve and enhance customer service. If I'm a shipper and I have a problem where I feel compelled that I need to call Saya or any other carrier for that matter, I would much rather speak with a person at the service center that may actually be able to go out on the dock and say, yes, I saw your freight. Or let me go look real quick, right? If I'm trying to call the service center in Buffalo and I get a service center, a customer service representative in Des Moines, Iowa, they just don't have the eyeballs, right? So I like that idea of moving it down to that service center level, and that if you call the service center, you're going to speak to a person and hopefully get an answer. So I think it's a good move. They have been growing more rapidly than just about any other LTL carrier out there since Yellow closed. So I know that they're going to have some growing pains just dealing with the growth. And then the other thing with the LTL carriers, they operate a network. So Saya has 200 some odd freight terminals. So you may be a shipper in, again, Buffalo. You may be experiencing some issues, and it's easy to paint the brush with Saia that they are having problems because I'm seeing them in Buffalo. Meanwhile, Los Angeles, Dallas, Kansas City, Atlanta, everything's great. So it may just be an isolated type situation that they're at Buffalo. Maybe they are having some constraints with, too much business to handle, or a new service center manager coming in, or some operational changes that they're trying to get under their belt. So it's very common for that to happen across a big LTL carriers network that, they may have areas where they're doing really well and they're operating at top capacity, and areas where they may be struggling a little bit.
All right, let's talk to me a little bit about the FedEx spinoff. Actually, there's an article just went out today about that. I put something about the CEO they named like 3 weeks ago, but I just put one out today. Talk to me about that. What do you see the good about it? Do you see any issues with it, or do you like it? Tell me about your idea.
Yeah, I think at least on Wall Street and with some investors and some people, there was a little bit of disappointment that they didn't hire a sexier name, find somebody from the industry outside of FedEx to bring in. I think people were looking at what XPO did in bringing in Dave Bates. Dave Bates has done an amazing job at XPO, but he's one of the pieces of the puzzle. There are also a lot of other amazing people that have helped make XPO where it's going right now. So it's not always just one person. So I think that's part of it. I think FedEx may have looked at that and said, one person is not going to be the different differentiator for us. But I think the bigger part of it is that just separating FedEx Freight from the parent company, that's going to be a hugely complex task. That's why when they first announced it, they said that they were on a 1.5-year plan to study it and make it happen, because it takes time. It's complicated. And I think that they looked at all of the work that needs to be done and felt that bringing this sexy outside hire in to come shake up the company would be a very bad decision when you're unwinding the company from the parent. So I think that's why they chose the CEO they have, because they have an insider that knows the ropes, knows the people, and he's going to be in the best position to help make the transition work as smoothly as possible. Now, maybe a couple years down the road, if he retires, they may bring in that outsider superstar. But I think right now, they probably made the right decision in what they did.
Funny you said that. I talked to someone that worked at FedEx, and that is exactly what they said. Listen, the reason we went internally, in order to unwind it, they know where is the billing. The billing is here. He already knows. A new person, where is the bill? Well, I don't know who's there. He knows where everyone is, so he can help unwind that process.
Yep.
To get it separate. Once it's separate and it's standalone and everything you need is there, much easier to bring someone else. And they didn't say they're going to bring someone else in. Let's be clear about that. But the unwinding, you have to know where the potatoes, where the oranges, where's this, and he knows already. So that's exactly what you said, what they told me. So yeah,
it's exactly what T-Force went through when they bought UPS Freight from UPS. I mean, there was about that first 3 years, it was a lot of executives tied up with the unwinding, and that really kept their eye off the ball. And so I think FedEx watched that and said, let's do this a little bit differently. And let's make sure that we've got a really good transition plan in place. So.
All right. Hey, I have some, it's out in our online magazine. It hasn't been posted out on LinkedIn yet. So I have some tonnage from May, and Art Best is again crushing it, like over 6%. Old Dominion Saia is not down a lot, but Old Dominion XPO is down a bunch in May. What do you see in the tonnage? Again, we had the tariffs. We know that slowed down. The imports haven't hit yet. Is this all due to tariff stuff, the ebbs and flows of what's happening on the port market, or is there other reasons for the drop in tonnage?
Yeah, I think overall across LTL, the industry is down. So what you're seeing from an Old Dominion, from XPO, that's probably the average that the market is down. And then you're going to have some carriers that are outperforming that and some carriers that are underperforming that. ArcBest ABF is a really good example of what I mentioned before, that everybody's got their unique path that they're on. So right now, ArcBest is showing positive tonnage numbers. That's fabulous. I mean, you're in a down market, but you're growing. That's great. But if you go back a year or two, ArcBest was struggling more than the typical,
Yes. There you go.
right? So part of it is that they have what they call easier comps, right? It's easy for me to look good this year when last year I wasn't looking so good, right? And if I have a banner year last year, that makes it harder to outperform this year. So that's one reason why they're showing better, they're looking better right now. But the other thing is, I think they're really getting their dynamic pricing model really dialed in. They have a large batch of quote opportunities every day to look at, hundreds of thousands of opportunities. They only haul about 20,000 shipments per day, but they do hundreds of thousands of quotes. And so they are pricing those quotes at the optimum level, quote by quote, to maximize their profit. And by doing that, they are finding ways to creatively bring in some business that they might not otherwise bring in. That's good for them. So I like what they're doing right now.
I'm going to take you back, since I have someone that knows this well. We're going to go back to Yellow Roadway merger. And I never understood, I'm here in Chicago, and it never seemed to fully integrate. Okay. We had a roadway DC, probably 2 miles from the Yellow DC that never really integrated. What happened there in your mind? What happened with Yellow Roadway? Outside of the pension issues in Central State, I don't want to get into that. Just operationally, what did you see?
I think it was a combination of things. Number one, I think they had a chief executive officer that got over his skis, so to speak. He just got way too aggressive in buying some companies. Number two, they, like just about everybody else, did not see the Great Recession coming, and so they were not prepared for it. They really thought they could take Roadway and Yellow and USF and operate them separately and just combine back office and make that work. But what they really needed to do was what they tried to do at the very end, which was let's put all this stuff together as one big carrier. And they finally got around to doing it when they really had no choice, right? But they should have done that soon after the mergers took place, and they probably would still be around here if they had done that. But that's what I think led to their downfall. They were, with the debt they took on, they were just not able to recover from the Great Recession.
I thought the same thing. Like I said, we were doing pickups in the area, and I would say, why would they run two facilities? I think they're in Chicago. Rich guys, if I'm wrong, you can definitely hit us in the comments. But they were so close to each other. I'm like, I don't get this. You know what I mean? I don't get why you run two complete different facilities. It never made sense. Well, I've always been really curious about that. So glad for your input. So what do you see? So now that we're kind of the last 5 minutes, so what do you tell me about where do you see the LTL industry today? Where do you see after the tariffs have settled? China, they're in London working through that now, just on a 90-day. Heard India is almost done. UK is done. EU is still working on. So I believe we will come to whatever those tariffs are going to be, some settlement in the next 90 days. What do you see after that for LTL and then going into 2026? If you had to answer the
Yeah, that's a great question. I think LTL is primed to start growing again once we get this tariff mess settled. There's just so much uncertainty out there that you've got a lot of people sitting on their hands, not making capital purchases. So LTL is industrial based. It's a lot of, shipping, machinery, equipment, and companies are not buying that kind of stuff right now because they're worried that there's going to be a new tariff tomorrow that's going to cause me to lose half my customer base. What do I do with this $1 million piece of equipment and I don't have any customers anymore, right? So we just need that to settle down. And I think that the LTL industry is set to finally prime and grow again. And we may start seeing some capacity tightness because even though all the carriers have got capacity now because they're down generally, and carriers like XPO and Saia and even Old Dominion have invested in their network, they've got more doors. We still have a smaller network of terminals because half of the Yellow properties never came back on, right? The lights are still turned out. So it's not going to take much of a growth in the industry for the carriers to start to get tight capacity again. And we'll probably see some prices rising a little bit, but the carriers will be making more money again, right? So they're still doing great, but they're just not making the money that they did, back in COVID when everything was blowing and going. So I think we're going to start seeing that maybe as soon as later this year and then into 2026.
All right, sir. Well, thank you. In closing, I always give an opportunity to tell me about anything you want to tell me about your company, whatever you want to close with.
Mhm.
The floor is
Yeah.
yours, sir.
Hey, you bet. I appreciate that. So, for a shameful plug on my behalf, the company I work for, Cubiscan, we are all things LTL freight dimensioning. We've been selling dimensioners to the LTL carriers for close to 20 years now, and we are now speaking more and more with LTL shippers. So, anybody, whether you're a shipper, whether you're a 3PL working with shippers, if you need some help and guidance in navigating the NMF changes that are coming next month in July and the way that LTL pricing is evolving, we're there to help you. Just come out to our website at cubiscan.com. We would love to talk to you.
No problem. And just so all our listeners know, we're going to have a link to his company, so you can see. There's always a link to our guest LinkedIn, so you can see them there also. So, thank you for taking time. Thank you for being on the Hall of Fame podcast.